Welcome, welcome. Another good day with some good food and some good conversations. Thank you for being here, Divine Being. Today here with Rex.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for having me on the show today. It's always a pleasure to have to be able to talk to your audience. And I just want to start with one of the practices I always do, which is to like bless whatever substance I'm taking or whatever food I'm putting into my body. So I'm just gonna bless the orange juice. Dear Divine Creator, please bestow the best vibration upon this orange juice. Let it integrate in the best way possible, do the highest possible good for my being. And a special prayer of thank you just for, and gratitude to Kimberly and David for, bringing this wonderful orange juice. They make it themselves, so just very, very special prayer for them to show gratitude. And I think that's one of the ways I like to start my day. I don't know about you, but I always like to start my day by doing a gratitude meditation and, putting myself in the frame of gratitude towards other people, towards the house where I live, towards nature. I think gratitude is really key when we're raising our vibration.
Yeah, definitely. I do a lot of gratitude things in the morning before I even get out of bed.
Yes.
Before I'm even out of bed, I've already sent gratitude everywhere in my way. And I'm working on making a program for that, just
Oh yeah.
sharing the way that I wake up each
Oh
day.
yeah.
And just what I do and what my path is with that, and just so people could check it out if they want, and maybe add some things to their daily routine or not. It's all good. I'm just glad to get it out and share.
Yeah. Well, I don't think it necessarily matters what you do as far as gratitude, but the fact that you do some kind of form of gratitude journaling, gratitude meditation, something to really put yourself in the frame of gratitude. So one of the things I actually wrote my own book at one point called How to Spark Your Own Golden Age Tips for Success. In one of the ways in which I managed to write this book was I was never intending to write a book on this, but I just started gratitude journaling every day. I started with a list of 10 things I was grateful for, and it really changed how I interacted with my colleagues I was working with at my school. I just felt so much more grateful, and every day before I went to school, I would go to a cafe and I would spend 15 minutes just on my gratitude journaling before I got into this school, so that I would be bringing good energy to my colleagues and into my students. Because I think that's one thing a lot of teachers don't do, is they don't bring, they get up in the morning, they're all tired and stuff, which I understand that because I used to be that way too. But I think, the more we can put ourselves in frame of gratitude, the better start it gives to our day, and the better interactions we have with other people.
Yeah, definitely. And that putting yourself in the state of gratitude in the morning, it sets your whole day that way. It lines up your whole day to be that way. It lines up your whole life that way. And it also opens the opportunity for more things to be grateful for on your path.
Yeah. And we were actually talking in the car. We went shopping, and we were talking in the car about how I know maybe some of us have lost friends over the past couple of years over differences of opinions about things. Like I know this was certainly the case for myself, but I always think about why I made some good memories I had with those friends, and just putting myself in the greatest state of gratitude, because even if we had some division over one thing, there's still a lot of experiences that maybe we had in our lives to be grateful for, to those that maybe we interacted with in the past, and just putting ourselves really in the state where we're thankful to others, we're thankful to our family, we're thankful to our friends, we're thankful for the lessons that we've learned from our past experiences.
Yeah. It's great to be retrospective, kind of look back into those things.
Yeah. Well, we don't want to be so retrospective that we lose the present moment or we lose our future, but I think maybe if you haven't necessarily had the best experiences, you need to go back and to actually do the shadow work to heal some of those experiences, and know how to be grateful for them. So that's something that I certainly spend a little bit of time working on every day, and I just feel like I'm more and more in a frame of gratitude towards other people, and it helps open my heart to new relationships with other people and new possibilities in my life.
So you've seen that, how practicing gratitude and being grateful and putting gratitude out brings you more to be grateful for.
Yeah,
You
exactly.
watch that
Yeah.
process happen.
Yeah.
Me too.
Yeah.
I really learned it with love, because I learned long ago how to shine my love out.
Yeah.
And in that process of learning how to shine love out, I learned how to receive the love. And I saw how much love would come back.
Yeah.
At first just feeling it.
Yeah.
And feeling it, how much love comes back. And then
Yeah.
just the more and more I do that, the more and more I see that love in my life in all sorts of ways. I think we really have a lot of power in our lives.
Yeah. I mean, I'm a coach for some people because I'm an energy healer, and that's one tip that I give them is that to put themselves in a frame of love, right? And gratitude is one aspect of love. I know you have a course on love. Maybe you can talk, or just share a couple of tips from your course, so maybe people would be more interested checking it out. How would you define love?
In basic metaphysics, I contributed most to gravity. What is known by physics of what gravity is not really the truth of what gravity is. They say the one thing gravitates towards the other thing.
Yeah.
But really they're both reaching towards the mutual point between the two.
Yeah.
Two objects are actually moving towards the space in between. And when two objects move close to each other, less is in between them.
Yeah.
And the more there's less in between them, the more they're drawn together.
Yeah.
And so that's magnetism.
Yeah.
And that's gravity. And that's love.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the way that I say is love is that draw to each other. But then when you spin those two things, they're also pulled apart.
Yeah.
So it's separation and attraction. It's separate but attractive. It's a separate attraction.
Interesting. Yeah, well, I think there are different forms of love. So gratitude is one form of love. Another form of love is forgiveness. Being able to forgive others. It's not always the easiest thing to do, but the more you can forgive others, the less victim consciousness you have.
The more self-love you're giving yourself too, when you release.
Yeah.
When you forgive others and release that, you have more self-love.
Yeah. And
no, thank you.
a lot of people, if they say this person doesn't love me or whatever, if they say, if someone says nobody loves me, right? What they really need to work on is the aspect of forgiveness, learning how to forgive others and learning how to, put love on their field of energy, because we all have a field of energy. You have a field of energy. Kimberly has a field of energy. Merci beaucoup.
Gracias.
So I think that's one form of love. You have romantic love, you have gratitude, you have forgiveness. There's divine love, just being an unconditional love for all things. you know, loving things no matter what happens. So
Unconditional love.
unconditional love. So, you know, I don't like Dr. Fauci very much, but I love him in a certain way.
Yeah.
I think he's so ridiculous that I love how ridiculous it is, because maybe that will actually inspire some people to see past everything that's gone on in the past couple of years. So, you know, we have to learn how to love unconditionally, you know. So I like, even if
Without conditions.
without conditions. And like, we'll talk about self-love for a second, is that if I have unconditional love for someone, that doesn't mean I don't have boundaries, okay? So that doesn't mean that, you know,
And you want to invite Dr. Fauci over for dinner.
no, Dr. Fauci does not get to eat dinner with me. You know,
You have boundaries, but you love him unconditionally.
yeah, I love him unconditionally, but I have boundaries around it, okay?
Yeah. I agree.
So someone who's constantly bringing misery in my life, I have boundaries. I say, this person is no longer welcome to interact with me all the time. So we'll just wait for the car to pass. So I was just making a point that someone who doesn't treat me well, they don't get to be a part of my life all the time. You know,
But you can still send them love.
I can still be loving, but you know, part of self-love is having boundaries, you
Yes.
know, and building, and you know, they say good fences make good neighbors, and so like, you know, some people in my family are building a fence right now with a neighbor that's, you know, maybe not super aligned with them and stuff, that kind of has a vicious dog. So there's being a boundary that's being built. And that doesn't mean that, you know, people in my family can't, you know, be loving towards them, but they also build a fence so that they have a boundary. You know, we need to have healthy boundaries in our lives, and not just building a fence, but also, you know, in other ways as well. We create we create healthy boundaries. So I have a very healthy boundary with doctors. I don't spend any time going to hospitals. You know, and I learn how to eat well. I take good care of myself, and you know, I receive body work and do other things to improve my health. So that way, I don't put myself at the mercy of the medical system. That's a boundary that I have. So I think, you know, I think there's also, you know, self-love comes down to self-respect as well. I show respect to myself for doing that.
Mm-hmm. It's a good way to practice self-love is self-respect.
Yeah, so self-respect. So I think that's really important in this whole thing as well. And sometimes I think there's another form of love. Amanda Vollmer, I heard her talk about this as well. She's one of the people that's spoken out a lot about what's been going on in the past 2 years. She's been highly censored. You basically can't find her on YouTube or whatever. But she talks about tough love. You know, sometimes tough love is speaking our truth, even when other people don't want to hear it. So, you know, there's also tough love as well. That doesn't mean we don't love somebody, but that's also coming down to establishing our boundaries with other people as well.
Tough love, also like a dad.
Yeah.
Deciding to take away a kid's phone because they're using it too much and they're not doing other things. They're not taking care of their responsibilities.
And like,
tough love, like, that's one example of tough love.
That's one example, and you know, that's another habit that people really need to get around. Like, I think you and I were both fortunate enough to grow up in a time when there were no cell phones.
Yeah.
Like, I remember the first cell phone I saw was when I was in France in high school, and I took a trip to Paris, I think when I was like 16 or whatever, as part of a high school trip. You know, like my host dad had a cell phone, but I don't remember there being any cell phones before that. And later, when I was in high school, they started having cell phones where I was from in Vermont. But if you went over a hill or something, the cell phone no longer worked.
Yeah.
So like, you know, I know how to have healthy boundaries around my cell phone. You know, I don't spend all day on my cell phone. You know, I create that boundary. And when I was a teacher, I used to have a box where I collected all the cell phones before class, because I found that if I didn't do that, no work would get done, all the cell phones would be out, the students would be playing on them. And I think we really need to learn how to have that self-love in terms of not giving all our love to our cell phones. We need to give a love to ourselves and allow ourselves time to go to the beach, or time to read a book, or time to do other things besides spend time on our cell phones, because cell phones are a great tool for communication. I mean, I really appreciate how they allow us, when you say, hey Rex, you know, we'd like you to come over and do a podcast today. That's great, but you know, in terms of like, I'm going to play a game on my cell phone all day long, I mean, that's not self-love. So we really do need to have strong boundaries on with cell phones, and we need to have a good healthy relationship with technology.
Yeah.
Because you have a relationship with everything. Okay, when we talk about relationships, a lot of people think, okay, I'm gonna invite a girl out on a date, or my relationship with my husband or wife or whatever. But you know, we have a relationship with money. Okay, we have a relationship with our cell phone. Okay, we have a relationship to the apartment we live in.
I got a relationship with avocados.
Yeah, you got a relationship with avocados. So we have a relationship with everything. So I think it's really important to examine, if your life isn't working out, you have to examine, what is your relationship with money? What is your relationship with other people? What is your relationship with the place you live with? You know, we have to examine these relationships, and if you're not satisfied with something, maybe you need to improve your relationship with something. And it's not just your relationship with your girlfriend or your boyfriend or your romantic partner, but also to improve your relationship with money, to improve your relationship with your family, whatever it is. Do you have any more comments to make on that?
Yeah, well, I think that such the key that we have going on here is that self-love. I think we are the center of our perspective. We are the center of our own universe.
Yeah.
Wherever I go, I'm always there.
Yeah.
Wherever I go, there's always northeast, southwest in every direction. No matter where I go, there's always up and there's always down. And we are always center. So it's really important to see, you know, that everybody has that also. Everybody's all in their center also.
Yeah.
And that our body is our vehicle that moves through south 5 steps, north 7 steps, but we're still south and north. It's that love temple that our bodies are. Our bodies are that love temple. And when you can see your body as a love temple, then you can give it a different amount of respect.
Yeah.
You can have a different kind of respect and gratitude for it. Then when you have that respect and gratitude for your love temple, seeing your body as your love temple,
Yeah.
you're able to love it a little bit deeper. You're able to have the boundaries.
Yeah. Could you give your listeners maybe one way they can have more respect, one practical thing they can do to have more respect for their love temple?
To show themselves more respect to their love temple?
Yeah. How can they do
practice
that?
loving
Yeah.
their temple.
Yeah.
Well, one way would be like detox.
Okay.
Detoxing is, I'm talking about, there's a huge range, there's just the word detox right now. There's
Yeah.
a huge realm of things that can be detoxed.
Yeah.
So, detoxing the input. If this is your temple, what are you going to allow in it? Having boundaries and detoxing what music you're listening to, what you're allowing that music into your temple. Is it the best for your temple?
Yeah.
What food are you putting into your temple? Are you allowing good things into your temple? So detoxing your input is a great way
Yeah.
of taking care of your love temple. It's a great way
Yeah.
of showing your love temple gratitude and respect. It's a great way of respecting yourself.
Oh yeah.
And that echoes out in your entire life.
Yeah. And one thing I would recommend, just my personal opinion, I mean, you're free to disagree with me if you desire to, but one thing I'd recommend to detox from is coffee. So a lot of people, they drink a lot of coffee. I know I used to be a big coffee drinker. That's part of the reason I don't work as a teacher anymore, because as a teacher, you're often giving your energy to others. So people instead of taking time for yourself to replenish your energy, a lot of people use coffee as a substitute to do that. I mean, a lot of
And that's
teachers-
along with energy drinks, the
Yeah.
caffeine.
Yeah.
And coffee is also acidic, so it creates not a good environment in your body.
Yeah. The other thing it does is, I don't know all the specific research on this, but there are like 3 different parts of your brain. So there's like your lizard brain, then your mammalian brain, and then kind of like your more human brain on top of it. I forget the technical terms for this, but what it does is it puts you in the frequency of your lizard brain, which is where all like the fears are stored and like a lot of anxieties stored and stuff. So I haven't drank coffee, I think, for 2 years now, and I feel a lot better since I've made that change.
That's a big shift. That's a good step to start out with.
Yeah, I think that's a really great step for a lot of people to start out with.
When I learned about like caffeine and the nervous system,
Yeah.
nervous system is like our nerves and like what makes us nervous, and
Yeah.
what gets us shaking and shivering.
Yeah.
Like when you're shivering, that's like almost like your nervous system is shaking. When you have caffeine,
Yeah.
it's a big like vibration. It's not a good vibration in your nervous system.
Yeah.
You get kind of more on edge, and your muscles are a little more tense, and you're a
Yeah.
little more like fast, twitchy move.
Oh, yeah.
And it's not good for your body temple.
Oh, I know. Like I can remember a time, because I know David has a very different background from me, which is great. But I spent a lot of time in schools, like getting my bachelor's degree, getting my master's degrees.
I spent a lot of
And-
time getting kicked out of class, sitting in the hall.
Well, anyway, the point I was working on making was I was taking an exam, and I had studied so hard that I needed energy to take my exam.
It's spicy.
Oh yeah.
And so, since I had studied so hard and spent all this energy for the exam, studying for the exam, I needed coffee in order to, take the exam. And I just remember like trembling and like, I had all these weird body movements from taking this exam, and I probably could have done better on it if I had budgeted my time better and maybe done some meditation instead, to be calmer and stuff. So I think coffee's a really good thing not to do. So sorry, Starbucks and Dunkin' Donuts, but we're not. This podcast isn't here to keep you in business. There's actually a good coffee substitute. I don't know if you've heard of it before, but it's called Capomo.
Yeah, we did that for a while.
Yeah, so if you are in Mexico, or there's a special health food store in the U.S. that maybe they export this to, it comes from a special tree and it tastes just like coffee.
Capono, yeah.
What's
Yeah.
your experience with Propono, Kim?
It did not excite my nervous system like coffee did, and I don't know how they do the crops, but I do also know that coffee is one of the most heavily sprayed for pesticides crops. So it's really not something that's good to put in your body. I often found people said, oh, it's a diuretic, it helps you to go to the bathroom. Well, that's one way that our body gets rid of toxins.
So it's just getting rid of it.
And so I think that the coffee, yeah, it helps you to poop because it's toxic. That was my opinion. That was my. I mean, I don't know. You know, I'm not saying that I know that that's 100% accurate.
We did the Capono for a while with some, and we even did cacao, and then we switched to just cacao, and then we don't drink hot drinks anymore
Yeah.
because we're working on that balance. And the true raw life,
Mm-hmm.
cooking and heating up tea and making things like that is not raw. The things are no longer alive when you heat them up past 118. And so we're living with full life. Living our lives fully, with full life foods.
Yeah.
They've done studies on cats. They did a study with cats, and they fed the cats all these different diets. One was a raw meat diet. One was
Hello, you speak Spanish?
Poquito.
Poquito, me too, poquito.
one was a regular, like,
You have
I don't know what else they gave them, but
what company?
processed food.
Totaplay,
And the
Totaplay?
cats did the best with raw meat. That's what they were meant to
no mi
eat.
casa.
We don't have the same teeth as cats,
Sí,
obviously,
gracias. Bonito dia.
and
Good morning.
we don't have the same
Gracias.
teeth as cats. So I personally don't believe that we were created to eat meat. But I do believe that the raw is what's most beneficial, and you see that in the animal life. You don't see apes or elephants or all these other animals getting diseases. It's dogs, cats, and humans. And what do they all have in common? They're all eating processed, dead food.
Yeah, most
Yeah,
of it's cereal,
yeah.
like
Yeah.
cereal for breakfast. The dogs eat
Yeah.
pretty much cereal too.
Yeah, and
Mhm.
like we were actually discussing this earlier because I was having a conversation with a veterinarian I know. I asked this veterinarian, I said, you know, because this veterinarian was talking about how, like this, they had to put a cat to sleep because it had kidney failure, and I asked them, what causes kidney failure? You know, and what was interesting to me was the veterinarian didn't know, like, what, you know, caused kidney failure. So I was like, I was like, that's very interesting because to me, if you're a veterinarian, you should know what causes kidney failure in a cat, right? But I think it's pretty obvious, like, yeah, they're not eating the right food, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Bingo. And
Yeah.
humans are the same.
Yeah.
Most humans are having problems. We just went to this market today where she sells all these amazing fresh local vegetables and fruits and organic things. And she said she was having stomach problems. When we started talking to her more, telling her about fasting, how fasting can cure just about anything. So, you know, fast, no food for 3 days, and maybe some enema cleanses. And then we found out that also that she was eating bread. And what do you know about bread, David?
Well, I've been studying it with the gluten in bread and the reasons why, and the stomach is like a cheesecloth. There's like a thin lining in it. And the gluten in certain foods like just tear that lining up. And yeah, the body keeps healing itself when you sleep, but usually it doesn't have enough time to.
Yeah.
And then you just tear it open again and again and again. So it's not really good for you.
Yeah, no, I
It
think
is not good for you. Not just really, it just isn't.
Yeah.
But it's like it's what the kings would feed the peasants, just
Yeah.
like the rice
Yeah, so
and the
couldn't
wheat. It's like they wouldn't eat it, but they feed it to the poor
yeah.
to keep them that way.
Like the French Revolution, you know, about there not being enough bread, you know, like, and you look at kind of the control system, and one of the things they gave to the ancient Egyptians to kind of establish the control system was they got them eating bread and drinking beer. Those were the two things that they had them consume in order to, you know, kind of establish more control.
And then that's
Yeah.
like, that's a good
Oh my
worker.
God.
When you give your workers bread and beer, they'll
Yeah.
keep working. They'll work for bread and beer.
Yeah. And-
What do they say in Rome? Give them bread and circus and they'll never revolt.
Yeah. Yeah, and we have so much bread in circus. That's
We have an abundance of bread and circus.
Well, there's hockey season, and then next there'll be some baseball,
Yeah,
basketball,
yeah,
football,
yeah.
soccer. It's all the season.
I kind of get that sometimes people need something
Circus.
to like not to calm down, but you know, I think hockey is a particularly bad sport.
Right.
So, you know, apologies to all the Canadians out there that love hockey so much, but it's violent. You know, it encourages like people to run into each other and
Yeah. And
you know,
on purpose.
I will admit I used to enjoy watching hockey, so I know that this is a process for people, but if you're going to watch a sport, I don't think a contact sport like hockey is particularly a good thing to watch. That's just my opinion.
If you want to calm
Yeah.
down, it's better to just watch the trees and the birds,
Yeah.
Yeah.
or the ocean, or the clouds,
Yeah.
or the stars, or the moon.
Mm-hmm.
Nature is the
Nature is
best
the medicine.
healer.
It's the best
The
healer.
garden is a great family
Yes.
friend
Or
medicine.
watch a cat chase a mouse. You know, that's pretty entertaining. I
Yeah.
love watching cats.
Or
you know
a
what I mean?
spider versus a
Yeah.
praying mantis and things
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't think hockey's a good choice. And the other thing,
I've never been a sports watcher. I don't understand it. I don't, you know, I don't give a fuck. I don't know these people. Like, if
Yeah.
it's someone I know, I can kind of understand watching.
yeah,
But who cares?
yeah. Well, I used to be a competitive athlete, so I understand why a lot of people do. But I think another one that's pretty bad is football because there's a lot of physical contact at all.
Mhm.
It destroys
Yeah,
people's
so
bodies.
much.
Yeah, it does. Like those guys get injured and then they have like brain injuries.
I know.
And so I think that's a pretty bad one as well.
Yeah, I know a lot of people
Yeah.
have gotten destroyed from that.
Yeah, so I don't pay any attention to that anymore. It's just like, you know, other people can watch the Super Bowl or the Super Bowl or whatever they call it, but I have other things to do.
Some people say they watch it just for the commercials.
Some people just watch it just
We
for
watch
the
it for the
food 'cause they all
commercials.
pig out on.
Well, junk food.
I mean, these are
Yeah.
a lot of these commercials, they're just to sell you stuff that you don't need. Like,
Yeah.
Consumerism.
and like, you know, a lot of commercials, especially when you're watching the news or the misinformation. I like to call it the misinformation and not the news. I mean, that's just my personal opinion. But there's
I'm gonna have to agree with you on that.
but I think there's a lot of misinformation on what most people call the news, a lot of fear programming, a lot of things too. It's always about death, car accidents.
What a horrible world we live in.
What a horrible world this place is. All that kind of stuff. Which this world is actually a friendly place if you allow it to be. I mean, that's
Yeah.
what you give your time and energy to. But there's always these pharmaceutical ads during the misinformation on the news. You know.
Interesting.
Yeah, so it's always like Pfizer, antacids. So people that don't eat properly, then they take an antacid because they don't want to learn how to eat properly. Instead, they want to just take a pill
To try to mask the symptoms, so
to
they
try
don't
to
have
mask
to
the
feel
But they're
symptoms.
eating acidic things. They're wondering why they're eating an antacid, but they just eat the acidic things and then take a pill for the antacid.
Yeah.
And you can just easily not eat the acidic things. It's
Yeah.
logic to me.
Well,
But I don't want to hurt anybody. I might hurt somebody's feelings. But
Don't hurt anyone's feelings with logic, please.
well, as people also have to take responsibility for their own lives.
Exactly,
And their own feelings. So
And it goes back to that
Yeah.
love temple. It goes back to that loving
Yeah.
yourself,
I mean-
respecting your own body.
I mean, if
Mhm.
people can tell me that I'm not allowed to work in education because I don't want to take a vaccine or an experimental drug, in my opinion, I think we have a right to say, you know, if something that we say triggers people, that's people's responsibility to deal with on their own. They're responsible for it. They have to start taking responsibility for their own fears and their own triggers and
Well, in the United
work on
States,
them.
there's the
I
freedom of
agree.
the press and there's freedom of the speech. Anybody can film anywhere they're allowed to be. Anywhere you can see, you can film.
Yeah.
You can film anybody, whether it hurts their feelings or not. You can say
Yeah.
anything, whether it hurts their feelings or not. It's
Yeah.
the truth of the constitutional.
Yeah.
Well, everyone, we've gotten so far, we've gotten so into this like culture, cancel culture of not hurting anyone's feelings. It's gotten ridiculous. Like,
Yeah.
people,
You might as well just not speak anymore.
yeah.
People can be offended by your. Well, even if you don't speak, people can be offended by you not speaking.
People
and
are
just-
offended all the time.
People are
Yeah.
offended of my existence.
They are.
I exist. in
David,
other
we
words.
were on the beach one day just sitting there, and this guy came up and he told David to quit shining so bright. He said, "You are going to upset people. You need to not shine so bright." And
Well,
I
well,
was
It was
so
serious.
funny.
Like
It was
walked up to
serious.
us serious when he said that. I was sitting
Yeah.
there just like just
He
That-
was
enjoying the
being
day.
his-
That's one of the most ridiculous things I've heard in my life. Yeah.
I know. I was just sitting there next to him going, did that just really happen? I wish I would have gotten it on camera because he was like literally serious. He
Yeah.
was telling David
Yeah.
he's going to piss people
Yeah.
off by his
Alright.
bright energy,
Well,
glowing
well,
energy.
He was just playing his part.
Yeah,
Saying his
we're also at a point that we also have to realize too that as consciousness rises, people's triggers rise quicker.
Oh, we've seen that, yes.
Like they can be dealt with quicker, but you have to pay attention to them and stuff. I know I've experienced this stuff as well. But when you're triggered by something, that means there's something in your energy field that you have to work on. Like
Yeah.
Yes.
whatever's coming up in your life, if you're angry about something, that means there's some kind of unhealed trauma.
Exactly.
underneath
Anger is
it,
not our
yeah.
natural state. We're not
Yeah.
meant to be angry. So if there's
Yeah.
something that's angering you, there's something that you need
But
to look
you're,
at
yeah,
yourself.
it's not the
about.
other person that you're angry at, it's yourself.
Yeah.
My brother used to bother me because he would breathe. His breath, the sound of his breath would bother me at some point.
Yeah.
But that was me allowing me to be bothered by something that was just ridiculous for me to even be bothered by.
Yeah. Well, that doesn't mean that we can have an attitude like. I don't think at the same time. I think like something like Dr. Fauci. You know, I
You like him, don't you?
Yeah, yeah. So
He
much.
puts a lot of love and gratitude.
I know.
Yeah. But I think we still have an obligation to. That's one of those things where that's where I think it's appropriate to speak out. You know, it's not just say, okay, that's just the way it is. Like I think there's also saying, okay, this is something that we need to work on.
I think I know Bill Gates too, besides just
Yeah.
Fauci, because Bill Gates is on a whole nother level. He takes all this responsibility for this company, this program. He didn't even invent the program.
Yeah.
What program?
The Microsoft, the
Oh,
whole
yeah.
like
Yeah.
Windows. He didn't even invent Windows or DOS.
Yeah.
It started off with DOS and it became Windows and Microsoft. He didn't even invent it. He took it from somebody else and got rich off of it.
How the fuck did he do that?
And then he made his company to make he'd make his computer programs so they would be susceptible to viruses, so he could sell virus software.
Create the problem,
And then-
offer the solution.
Then he got into he's actually one of the donators that donated to the labs that started messing with the CV thing, 19 thing, whatever the hell you want to call it. He was one of the founders and promoters of that,
he
creating something, and he had tons of stake in the solution.
Yes.
Yeah.
He's a professional creator of problems and to have solutions, and now he's buying up
All
Marvel.
the land. Yeah, so
all the
everyone.
land.
Yeah.
And we were talking about generosity today. You know, at least back in like the late 19th century, early 20th century. At least, you know, the robber barons like Andrew Carnegie and those types of people, J.P. Morgan, at least they would occasionally just drive down the street and like throw $100 bills out the window. At least they were nice enough, even though they were not nice people, at least they were still nice enough to be like, hey, here's a bone, here's a dog bone for
Here's
you.
a
you know.
bone. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's it's like over the past 3 years, we've seen these so-called parasites, elites, whatever they are, these archons. We've seen them just want to take everything for themselves. You know, like
They have way more than enough. While the
you
person
know,
right
like
there-
why does Bill Gates need to own all the farmland in the United States? Like, doesn't he own like half of Nebraska or something? He owns like so much. He owns so much farmland. It's not even funny. You know?
I was watching
Yeah.
a podcast that there was Marissa Peers. I don't know if she's some hypnotherapist, whatever. She was saying that people that give a lot deserve a lot. And because he was attempting to wipe out some one of the viruses, that he deserved all of that. And I was like, oh my god.
Well, she comes from the same line of
well,
propaganda.
maybe-
BS, obviously.
Yeah.
maybe if he's so generous, he can donate me a new Apple computer. Not even a Microsoft computer, an Apple computer.
Well, you know,
Yeah.
Bill Gates has enough money to give us all
Yeah.
an Apple computer.
Yeah, maybe
He can just
all
give us all Apple computers.
all Apple computers, not the like. I know I like Apple computers. I've never owned an Apple computer, but I think they work better than Microsoft type computer. That's
Well,
just
the
my
whole
opinion,
Windows
yeah.
programming was made to be horrible and fall
Yeah.
apart, so you had to buy the new Windows program.
Yeah.
It's all been
No.
Just like the
profit
phone.
versus humanity.
Yeah,
The
just
phone-
like
yeah.
just like our blender.
Yeah.
Just like the vacuums I used to
Yeah,
buy.
yeah.
The
all of
blender
it.
is not made to last longer than its warranty.
Nothing.
It's not
is.
even made to last as long enough to for the store not to have to give you a new one
Yeah,
after it breaks. The
and-
blender broke in the first day. We returned it, and it broke the next day, and it broke again. Like, seriously?
Well, I don't know if you've ever done running. I used to be a competitive runner. And, you know, my dad was a competitive runner as well. And I remember when I was in high school, the average pair of running shoes that I used to run in would last me 300 to 500 miles of running. And so anyway, my dad told me when he was in college, he had a pair of shoes that could last 2,000 miles.
Yeah.
So how come, you know, they don't make shoes that can do 2,000 miles anymore?
Because then
yeah.
you wouldn't need to buy another pair.
Yeah.
That's why. That's exactly why.
Yeah, it's like they want you to just waste all these resources rather than making a product that lasts, lasts a long time. They just make it so that you have to upgrade to the next thing.
They threw that out of the water a long time ago. That products don't last because they realized, like when they were making pantyhose, they made the pantyhose that was indestructible.
Yeah.
And the pantyhose sales went down after every lady had pantyhose.
Yeah,
So
but
then they had to
come
start
up with a
making
new
them
idea.
fall apart. They had to make them fall apart.
But come up with a new idea, you know, or
Well,
like
even the cell phones, they're like 50 generations back of the technology. That way they can release another technology
Yeah.
next year
Oh.
and make you want it. That's why the cars come out with a new color
Yeah.
next year, so that you want that. It's part of
Well,
replacing. It's gonna change.
Let's talk about this idea of the cell phone because I want to go back to this for a second. I was reading that, you know, the other day I was reading an article this was a CNN article. Don't even ask me why I was on CNN or the communist,
How'd you even get there? What the heck?
how the communist nonsense network or whatever they call
Oh
it.
my goodness, it's another-
You know, but anyway.
Be afraid.
I was reading an article, and sometimes you can get a few nuggets of truth in some of these things. And they said the cell phone had been around since 1973. So I was like thinking about that for a second. I was like, I don't remember cell phones being a thing until late 1990s, right? And so I was thinking, like, how come if they had a cell phone in 1973, how come it took until the late 1990s for cell phones to become a thing? You know, it's like I think there's a lot of technology that, that's out there that hasn't been released to us. Like they only release the technology when they're
Yes.
ready to control it.
Apple is really big on
yeah,
that.
Yeah.
Like they made, and then they just changed it up too. They changed the chargers on the phone. They
Yeah.
changed the ports. You finally get some nice headphones that you like, and then they changed the headphone jack.
Yeah.
Then you finally get some nice headphones that work with the new jack, and then they make them Bluetooth.
Yeah.
And then you finally get some Bluetooth ones, and then they come up with something new.
Another example I will
Wow,
give
thanks.
on this is on cars, because I was getting my car fixed in another place in Mexico, where this was a guy that didn't have a garage where he just had a set of tools and would just repair your car in his a parking lot of his apartment. And since I had a Honda, he had to buy a special tool just so he could work on Honda. That's only for Honda. So, like they want to be able to control, so they want to be able to make it so that, you can only service your car at a Honda mechanic.
Yes.
And
they're all
not
different like that too.
Yeah.
BMW was big with that. I think BMW is the one that coined that, or Saab.
Yeah, so they want to make it so.
outmoding. That's the biggest thing. The biggest issue with it all is called outmoding. They make it so that, okay, well now that your blender finally break, well now we don't sell the replacement part, so you have to buy the new
Yeah.
blender. And there was a country like Germany that they made it illegal for cell phones to be outmode capable, that you had to make a cell phone that had the capability of replacing the battery.
Wow.
So you didn't have to buy a brand new phone. They're starting. This shift is happening. This stuff is being brought to the light, and the solutions are being found, and the darkness is fading away.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's great that Germany does that. I would like to talk about Germany for a second. One of the things that I don't understand about Germany is Bayer Pharmaceuticals. Have you ever heard of Bayer Pharmaceuticals?
They actually bought Monsanto.
Why? My question is, why is Bayer still a company?
Yeah.
Because
After all they've done.
they were involved with the Nazis in World War II. So why should a company like that still be trusted? Did anybody learn anything from World War II?
Nah, right?
Yeah,
Did
yeah.
anyone learn anything?
Did anyone learn anything from it? Like, how come the role of the medical profession in the Holocaust wasn't put under more scrutiny? How come that hasn't been looked into and changed? That needs to be looked into.
Well, if you really look into it, those that were Nazis after Germany in the World War II, they became like senators in the United States after that. They became like
I don't know
Congress,
if
and some of them are still in Congress.
I don't know if I can think of a specific example of that. But the one example I can think of is, I don't know if you heard of the V2 rocket program in World War II.
Sounds familiar.
It was like rockets that they sent from like the coast of Europe to like attack London and stuff. So anyway, one of the people that was behind like the German rocket program, he was named Dr. von Braun. And you know what his job after World War II was? He actually came to the US and was one of the directors of NASA. So they did co-opt some of those people. There was a thing called Operation Paperclip where they took
I've heard of that.
so some of the like former Nazis and brought them to the US and stuff. But it's something that most people don't know about, and it's like you talk to most people and they're like, we can't look into that.
It's a conspiracy theory.
It's a conspiracy theory. Well, I think anytime someone labels something as a conspiracy theory, I've talked about this on this show before, is that if you're saying something's a conspiracy theory, that's nothing but a slimy debate tactic. That's not an argument, that's a slimy debate tactic. Rather than actually looking into something and saying, I might be wrong here, and I'm going to educate myself about it, they don't have anything, so instead they just dismiss the truth by labeling something as misinformation, or
Exactly.
labeling something as a conspiracy theory.
So in my day, like all the conspiracy theories in my life that I've heard of, I've seen nothing but truth and facts proving those theories that I heard 10 years ago, 20 years ago, whatever, are actually true. So anytime somebody says, well, that's a conspiracy theory, then it's like, oh, awesome, now I have something new to research. I'm going to look into that.
Like, let's take vaccine passports. You know how at the beginning of the pandemic or scandemic or the bullshit, whatever you want to call it, they said, oh, we're not going to do vaccine passports. That's never going to happen. So here in Mexico, they actually try to do vaccine passports in Puerto Vallarta. And so anyway, there were some people from the freedom movement that went around to each bar and they videotape. They said, we got a group of 30 people here. Will you let us into your bar or not? And so they helped get rid of that. So they try to do it in Mexico. I met a girl from France that one ceremony I went to.
So they pretty much voted with their dollar and said, if you have 30 people that are going to buy stuff at your restaurant, but if you're going to say that we can't be here with vaccine passports, then you're not getting all this money.
Yeah, that's what they did, and they also videotaped their response. They did in stuff. And they lifted those bars lifted the restrictions. But I want to continue on my point. And so they said they said they were never going to do vaccine passports. And I met a girl from France that they literally wouldn't. She literally couldn't go to the grocery store in France because she refused the vaccine or the jab or whatever, the experimental drug or anything else. So
with a mask.
And I also I used to be a member of the Boston Salsa community in Boston, and one of the reasons I left Massachusetts was because you could no longer go to Havana Club in Boston without a vaccine card. And there were, I don't think I should have to prove that the proof of vaccine just to go dancing.
No.
You don't have to prove that you're a test rat? You didn't want to have to prove that you're a test rat? Because pretty much, what is that? That's what's called a test rat?
A lab rat.
Lab rat. I learned about lab rat when I was in school. Then I learned that they actually pay humans to test commercial products. Like they put stuff on your face and see if you freak out. And that vaccination or whatever you call it did not go through any of the trials that it took to realize that something's safe enough for people in the market. It still is going to take more years to find out. And so far the evidence is very good that it's really a good thing that I didn't get that. People are clogging up. Their arteries are clogging up with some crazy things. Blood like they've never seen before.
I just want to talk more about this whole thing too, because when you say you have to show proof of vaccine to go somewhere, that's a guilty until proven innocent approach. And in the legal system in the United States, I don't know about the legal system in other countries, you're supposed to have innocent until proven.
It's not, it's guilty until proven innocent. Even though they say it's innocent until proven guilty, that's not how it works, even in the United States. I
want to make my point on this. I think these doctors, politicians, and medical professionals, they need to learn how to honor and respect human rights. You know, so if you're a doctor or medical professional, you know, like, you shouldn't just be able to walk up to a friend, a person on the sidewalk, and ask if you've had the vaccine, because that's a guilty until proven innocent approach. And who's to say that they know the best?
That's against the
Yeah.
That's a HEPA violation.
No,
Also, because
I
medical
completely-
records are privacy, and that's nobody
Yeah,
else's business.
it's nobody else's business, and
whether you did or not.
that's a violation of people's medical freedom,
Basic rights.
basic rights, and these medical professionals,
And the right to it's against the right to remain silent.
Yes.
they need to learn how to respect and honor the human rights of others, because, you know, I don't think it's okay for them to say who gets to have a job, who doesn't get to have a job, you know, who gets to travel, who doesn't get to travel, who gets to speak, who doesn't get to speak. I didn't elect the doctors. You know, I didn't elect them to be in charge. I didn't elect the nurses to be in charge. I didn't elect Dr. Fauci to be in charge.
Did you know about this one study they did? They put someone in a lab coat, so he assumed the position of a doctor
Oh,
or
authority,
Yeah.
yeah.
authority, and they told the people that were involved in this experiment that you know, they were to push this button that was going to send an electrical shock to the people that were taking this test. And if they got an answer wrong, they, you know, pushed the button. And each time they got an answer wrong, the electrical shock was going to increase.
Yeah.
And so it wasn't real. This wasn't really happening. The people were not getting electrical
Yeah.
shocks.
There were actors going, ah!
Yeah. So they were just seeing if people would do this or not.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it was 80 or 90, however much the percentage was, the very high percentage of people who just followed orders without thinking for themselves.
Yeah.
It wasn't until, you know, a few people, when they realized they were, well, what they thought inflicting physical harm, even though it was just actors, they were like, oh my god, this is fucked up, I'm not gonna do this, and they would get up and walk out, and then that gave the other people that, like, oh, maybe this is bad, I don't think I want to be doing this either. And so, like, you know, I think 90%, there was only like 10, maybe 20% that would still do it no matter what, but
Yeah.
do what they were told no matter what. But it takes those first people to say, this is not okay, and then it's like the herd mentality, and then other people will follow along.
Well, it's.
But it
And
just
other people
shows-
stopped doing it because they did. They said, no
Yeah.
way, I'm not doing it.
I'm not doing it. So
And
it
somebody
takes
else like, oh,
more and
okay.
more people to just stand up and stand in their sovereignty and be like, this is not aligned with my core beliefs. I'm not going to do it just because someone in authority.
Someone in the lab coat's telling
A
me
lab
this
coat,
shock
yeah. A
is-
doctor doesn't have any more authority than anybody else.
Yeah, but now to me, the doctors actually have to prove to me that they deserve authority.
They don't. They don't. They don't deserve authority.
They don't deserve authority because, to me, they've done everything in the past 2 years to prove that they don't.
Yeah,
You-
nobody deserves authority because we
Yeah.
are all divine sovereign beings.
Yeah, we're sovereign.
And this,
Yeah.
this whole
And the idea that they have a monopoly on health is absolutely ridiculous. You
Kim
know,
has a
like-
better view on health than the doctor.
I agree. I
Dr.
mean,
Kim?
well, fasting and raw foods are the true way to health. That
Yeah.
is health is wealth right there. Any prescription drugs, they're going to just keep you masking the symptom and then creating other symptoms that you're going to need more drugs, and you're never really going to be healthy. The whole system is a sick care system. It's not a health care system.
yeah, and they always talk about health care, and then they always make it to the point of health care, where, you know, it means like going in the medical system and getting an operation, but they never ask what is health. You know, what makes a person healthy. So, you know, to me, when we talk about health, you know, there's physical health, mental health, emotional health, and spiritual health. And this whole whatever virus thing is one small, even if you accept it as true, it's one small component of physical health. So I'm like, if they're going to do medical tyranny, why don't they force everybody to go to the gym and put a gym on every block?
Because it's not really about health, it was about selling.
Yeah.
That was the biggest sold product across the world in history, was vaccinations, because they forced it.
Yeah, and why?
I think they sold more vaccinations to each people than they sell Coke to each people.
Yeah, I don't know. I go to the store and I see a lot of people drinking Coke, so I think
Yeah.
that's a pretty broad claim.
I mean, like
but yeah,
per person.
yeah.
One per person if you did it that way.
Yeah, but it's like,
Yeah.
I see a lot of Coca-Cola when I go to the convenience stores in Mexico,
And
you
if they
ask
could
me.
force it and make it a law, they would make sure that everybody had to drink Coca-Cola if they
Yeah.
could. They weren't. Their sales program wasn't as good as the pharmaceutical companies.
Yeah, or like I'm like if they
It's
want
really
to.
good though. They really push it.
Yeah, I mean, if they wanted to force everybody to be healthy, why didn't they ban potato chips? In Michigan they banned garden seeds, but they didn't ban potato chips. Like, how come they banned garden seeds and they didn't ban potato chips? I mean, apparently these potato chips have a lot of friends in Congress. Like these potato chip companies must, have people on their team that really support them, because the garden seed companies, they didn't get the same support.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I'm like, it's just amazing how it's actually kind of comical how ridiculous all of this is.
Well, that's a good way to end on this podcast. It's probably been a good hour or so. So, ridiculousness. Like, yeah, it's all ridiculous, and it's good. It's all ridiculous for a reason, to help people see how ridiculous it is.
Yeah.
And hopefully people can open their eyes and see how ridiculous it is.
Yeah.
And then we can move on towards good, positive things.
Yeah, let's just
We have
laugh at
boundaries.
it.
We have self-love. What you're doing is hilarious. It doesn't bother me. It's not hurting me, and it will pass. And crimes against humanity will be paid. Those two will come back around. So it's a beautiful day. It's a beautiful life. Go enjoy it. See the light in it.
Yeah.
Treat yourself right. Treat your friends right. Treat everybody right. Be grateful for everything. Everything.
Everything.
And that's why I like the mantra, thanks, loves. Loves is all, and all is loves. So thanks, loves, gratitude. Thanks, loves, thanks, loves, thanks, loves.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for having me on. Have a wonderful day,
We
everybody.
really appreciate it. Thank you so
Yeah,
much for your
yeah.
viewpoint and all your knowledge. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, well, I really
It adds a lot.
appreciate your knowledge as well.